I, 26 male, asked a guy, 28 male, to borrow his charger, and now my life is a rom-com, literally. This happened 6 months ago, and I still can't believe how it turned out. I, 26 male, was at this coffee shop where I go to work, sometimes when my phone hit the dreaded 5% battery. Of course, every single outlet was taken, except for the one being used by this guy, 28 male. He had this effortlessly cool vibe with messy dark hair, a leather jacket, and a slightly beat-up notebook next to his laptop. He looked like someone who writes poems about rain and secretly owns a record player. Spoiler, I wasn't entirely wrong. After internally debating for a good 5 minutes, I decided to just go for it. "Hey," I said, pointing at the outlet, "would you mind if I borrowed that for a bit? My phone's about to die." He looked up, smirked a little, and said, "Only if you tell me why your phone's more important than my screenplay." I laughed because, honestly, who says that? But then I told him the truth. It's not. But my brother just had surgery, and I'm waiting for an update. That must have caught him off guard because his whole demeanor shifted. He unplugged his laptop immediately and slid his charger over. "Here, take it. I hope everything's okay," he said. And there was this genuine kindness in his voice that made me feel like I wasn't just some random stranger to him. While my phone charged, we started talking. His name was Nate, he was 28, and shockingly, he was working on a screenplay, something about a struggling musician trying to find inspiration. I told him I was in marketing, but that I'd always wanted to write fiction. "You should do it," he said, like it was the easiest thing in the world. "Just like that?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah," he said, smiling. "If you're anything like me, you won't stop thinking about it until you do." We talked for an hour about music, movies, books, and how weirdly specific coffee shop playlists always are. My phone had been fully charged for ages, but I didn't want to leave. Eventually, though, I had to get back to work. As I packed up, Nate asked, "So, do I have to wait for your phone to die again to see you?" I laughed, probably too loudly, and said, "Only if you buy me coffee next time." Then I gave him my number. Over the next few weeks, we texted constantly and met up a few more times at the same coffee shop. Each time, it felt easier to talk to him, like we'd known each other for years. By the time he asked me out on a proper date, I was already halfway in love with him. But then things got weird. One day, we were hanging out at his apartment and he was talking about how his screenplay was finally coming together. He was excited, more excited than I'd ever seen him. He started describing the plot in detail, and I noticed something strange. It sounded familiar. Like, really familiar. "The opening scene," he said, "is in a coffee shop. The main character's phone is dying, and he asks this guy for his charger. They have this sarcastic back and forth, and then they start talking and realize they have a ton in common." I stared at him, my brain short-circuiting. "Wait," I said slowly. "Is this about us?" Nate grinned like a kid caught stealing cookies. "Not entirely," he said. "I made you a musician in the story, thought it'd be more poetic." I didn't know whether to be flattered or freaked out. He basically turned our meet-cute into the foundation of his entire screenplay. He tried to play it off like it wasn't a big deal, but he kept saying things like, "You were just such a good spark for the story." Here's where it gets even crazier. A few months later, his screenplay got picked up by an indie filmmaker. They're actually making it into a movie. At first, I didn't know how to feel about it. On one hand, I was proud of him. This was his dream, after all. But on the other hand, it's my life. Watching actors play out our story, with some creative liberties, sure, but still, felt surreal and a little invasive. We had a long conversation about it one night. I told him I felt weird seeing my life turned into content. He listened, and to his credit, He apologized for not being upfront about it sooner. He said he hadn't expected the story to get picked up and that he didn't want me to feel like he was using me for inspiration. In the end, I decided to let it go. I figured if our love story was good enough to be a movie, maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Fast forward to now. We've been dating for 6 months and things are going great. The movie's still in production and I'll admit, I'm kind of excited to see it, even if I'm secretly hoping it's just a little bit cringy so I can tease him about it forever. TLDR. I asked a guy for a charger at a coffee shop. We started dating, and now our love story is literally being turned into a movie.